Let's talk about how a simple paradigm shift can expand your ability to evolve and to manifest. Hi, I'm Saratoga Ocean, transformational life coach, channel, and author. And today I want to talk to you about a very significant paradigm shift that you can make that will enormously expand your ability to manifest and to evolve spiritually and personally. Now, I think that this paradigm shift is almost in a way urgent given the state of our planet, given the path of evolution that we are currently on. So let me tell you what it is in very simple terms. We need to shift from an earth-based context to a universal context. What that means is that we each need to begin living as citizens of the universe, as citizens of the cosmos. Now, this is not something new. It's not that we have to go somewhere to live this way, because we already do. We actually already are citizens of the universe. We are citizens of the cosmos. But the thing is, we don't live as though we are. We live as though we are only citizens of planet Earth. Now, let me explain to you why this matters and how it can make a difference in your life. It has to do with the fact that these are both what I refer to as a context for your life. So an earth-based context is sort of like the space within which you perceive your reality and live your experience. A universal context is also the space within which you live your reality and have your experience. So let's talk about what happens in each one of those contexts. Let's start with the earth-based context. Now, each of these contexts has with it a certain mandate for life, a mandate for your existence, a mandate for why you exist at all, for why you're alive. And this is so important because the mandate for each of these contexts determines what is actually possible for you. Now, let's talk first about the earth-based context, because that's the one we are all familiar with, right? There is a mandate, and you are told about this mandate from the day you are old enough to understand the language you're born into and to begin to think, all right? Here's what it is, and it's going to sound totally familiar to you. It doesn't even matter what culture you're in. It's pretty much the same thing. There's just variations on a theme, depending on what part of the world you're born in. So you're born. Then the first thing you're supposed to do, or you need to do, is develop. I'm actually going to put this mostly in the Western culture because that's where I live, and many of the people that follow me also live in the same culture. But you guys, if you live in a different culture, just apply it to where you live. Just make the adjustments you need to make, because I think you'll get the basic idea. So you're born. The first thing you need to do is to grow physically and develop sufficiently so that you can go to school, so that you can be educated. Now, currently, it's probably like maybe 2 years old, so that you can go to daycare, preschool, whatever. But the whole idea is you need to start getting educated. This is the mandate. This is not my idea. This is the overall mandate in our earth-based society. So you have to go to school, and you're probably going to spend the first 22 to 25 years of your life, literally a quarter of a century, being educated and indoctrinated to be a worker, to get a job, and to work hard to survive. That's a lot of time, okay? So if you look at it from, let's say you go to preschool when you're 2 years old, or you go to daycare when you're 2 years old, then you go to preschool, then you go to kindergarten, then you go to elementary school, all the different stages of education, ending up in college or university, master's degrees, et cetera, et cetera. That entire spectrum of time takes up about a quarter of a century of your life. The next thing you're supposed to do is you're supposed to get a job. You're supposed to work to survive, and hopefully as well produce offspring so that they can do exactly what you just finished doing, right? And then you do that for maybe another quarter century, 25, 35, 40 years, depending on how far you can go. But essentially, you need to keep going until you essentially wear out. When you wear yourself out to the point where you just cannot work anymore. Yes, I know this doesn't sound real positive, guys, but I'm just telling you the thread, the underpinnings, because we embellish this with all kinds of recreation and fun things and cultural stuff, et cetera, et cetera. But this is the trajectory that you are expected to follow if you live in an earth-based context, because this is the mandate, okay? So when you get to the point where you just can't work anymore, the next thing you're supposed to do is you just retire and essentially wait to die. Now, and during your retirement, you probably, as time goes on, you're dealing with a lot of medical issues, and eventually your body just completely shuts down, it breaks down, and you're done, and you leave. If you believe in reincarnation, well, it probably means you're going to come back and do the same thing again in another form. Now, that is sort of like the bare bones mandate. That's the trajectory that everyone is expected to follow. So if you live your life in an earth-based context, that's your mandate. And you're allowed to embellish that in whatever ways you choose. You can make it as fun as possible, as positive as possible, or as negative as possible. It's just differs for everyone. But essentially, the underlying trajectory is what I just described. Birth, education, indoctrination into society, into what you're supposed to be doing, working until you're completely burned out, finished, retire, and also somewhere in there, hopefully produce offspring who are expected to do exactly the same thing. So why is this a problem? Let me explain. If you only have this context for your life, you're going to find that your life is one of struggle. Everything could seem hard. Even having a positive life could seem like a struggle. I mean, I hear this all the time from people that follow me. It's just kind of the general feeling on our planet. The problem with this context is there are only so many options available to you, because what happens is, in an earth-based context, we identify ourselves as being subject to that mandate, and we start to think this is all that we are. And we might tell ourselves, yeah, I have a spiritual side. Yes, I have this inner world. I have all this stuff, but the bottom line mandate is I'm still on this trajectory. Now, I know there are people who say that Earth is a school and we need to do this because we're in some kind of a cosmic school. I'll talk about that in another video, and I don't actually subscribe to that entirely. I'll tell you why later, all right? Something original and unique. But for now, when you identify with this, your options are limited, so you are going to find yourself struggling a lot. Now, that's the first context. That's the common one. That's the one pretty much everybody lives in, right? Let's switch now to thinking about a universal context. And I want to emphasize, to live in a universal context, it's not that you have to go anywhere. It's more a matter of waking up. It's about waking up to the fact of where you already are. You already live in the universe. Now, here's something. I've been doing this work for many years. Years ago, what I used to say to people, because I've been doing this work since before the internet, and we had all these pictures of Earth from space, and people had a really hard time understanding that we were living on a planet. It wasn't that long ago, really. I know that sounds like crazy, but it's really true. They knew it intellectually, but experientially, they would tell me, I don't have an experience that I'm on a planet. And that might still be the case for a lot of people today. So what I did is I coined a phrase that I used for people to help them, which was an extraterrestrial context. Now, before you freak out over the word extraterrestrial, let me explain to you what I mean. I'm not talking about flying saucers. I'm not talking about UFOs. I'm not talking about, little green or gray people, whatever your belief is. I'm talking about a context. The reason I use this word is because this is a physical word. If I just say universal context, I find that word tends to connote something really kind of esoteric, abstract. We tend to put it, it's out there somewhere. But if I say, for example, how about a universal extraterrestrial context or extraterrestrial universal context? Then we're talking about physical planets, suns, stars, galaxies. We're talking about the physically proven reality of our universe, you see. So, and if you understand this, you'll realize extraterrestrial is not really a noun. It's actually, I guess it's kind of like an adjective, really. It describes a space. It describes a larger space within which we exist. It's also interdimensional. We are interdimensional beings. Our physical bodies perceive through our five senses, but we ourselves are interdimensional. Now, if this is getting too far out there for you, just pause for a moment, take a deep breath, inhale and exhale. Just relax for a minute, okay? You don't have to think about this or really, process all of this all at once. All I want to do is just invite you to become aware that you live in a universe. You live in an interdimensional universe. Now, why is that a benefit to start to wake up to that? Here's why it's a benefit. There is also a mandate in that universal context. And the benefit is this. The mandate is to evolve in the most unlimited, most beautiful way toward love, toward light, toward peace, toward a much higher expression of life in general. That's the mandate in a universal context. But you have to really get that on a visceral level, which is why I use the word extraterrestrial, because it's physical. It means something that includes everything. If I just say universal, as I said, it's kind of out there, it's kind of abstract, it's kind of esoteric. You can just sort of put it over there. So let's just acknowledge for a moment that we live in a physical universe, and it's huge, it's enormous, it's vast. And it is interdimensional. And the beauty of that is that it opens the door to so many possibilities, so many opportunities for evolution that we do not have when we shut ourselves down to this little box of just an earth-based context. So you might ask, well, how do you do that, Saratoga? How do you shift from an earth-based context to a universal context? How do we make that happen? Well, I'll tell you how. The cool thing is you don't have to look outside of yourself. You actually go within. You go within to your heart, to your inner being, to your intuitive self. Because think about this. You have within you the most amazing miracle happening at all times. And that miracle is your life force. There is an energy, a power, a radiance, and a love that sustains your existence every single second. And that power, that life force is timeless. It's not intermittent, right? It's an absolute constant. It doesn't waver, it doesn't change. Yes, your body wavers around and changes, but this life force that sustains you never wavers, never changes. It is a power that actually is generating the entire cosmos. So if you want to get in touch with this, go within yourself. Meditate. Meditation doesn't have to be really complicated. It can actually be very simple. It can be just as simple as creating a sacred space for yourself where it's quiet, where it's peaceful. I actually have multiple sacred spaces in my home so that I can just go and relax and just be at any time that I choose to do that. You could have, I like to have elements of nature, like maybe a candle or a small water fountain or plants or flowers or crystals, gemstones, whatever makes you feel peaceful. Music, soft meditation music is wonderful as well. And all you have to do is just be with yourself. Now you're going to have a lot of thoughts. You're going to have a lot of, stuff going through your head, but understand that those are just thoughts. You can just let them be. Don't fight them. Just be with yourself and go beneath your breath. And when you go beneath your breath, you're going to start to give yourself an opportunity to feel that energy that sustains you, that energy that keeps you alive, that energy that connects you to the entire cosmos. So that's really how you begin to make that shift. You make it on an internal experiential level, and then you also need to make it on kind of a regular common sense intellectual level. Don't be afraid to contemplate where you live. Don't be afraid to just consider, hey, we live in a solar system. The sun is an actual star. Those stars that you see at night are more suns similar to ours. When I lived in Santa Fe, you could actually look up at the night sky at certain times when the moon wasn't up with moonlight. You could actually see the edge of the Milky Way, 7,000 feet above sea level. So you can actually see the reality that we live in a galaxy. So don't be afraid to just consider that, contemplate that, open your mind to that, and start to make that shift. And as you make that shift, because it really is a paradigm shift, it's a shift from a very tiny little paradigm with that linear mandate that I described at the beginning to a big, beautiful cosmos of unlimited potential, unlimited possibilities. All right, so I do have more to say about this, but I'm going to save that for my next video as to give you a little bit more motivation as to why this is really to your big advantage to make this kind of a shift. All right, so that's pretty much it for now. Just think you have a choice. You can have an earth-based box of existence, which only has limited possibilities for you, or you can open your heart, open your mind, open your energy, your beingness, your infinite self to the truth that you live in a massive universe, an interdimensional cosmos that has a great many more opportunities, possibilities. It will actually, one more thing I'll add to this, it will actually help you tap into your higher self, your bigger self, your more expanded consciousness that's already there. Okay, so I invite you to explore this a little bit more, explore it in your own way, in your own time, and just watch for a sense of freedom. Watch the incredible sense of freedom that you will begin to feel. Watch for this feelings of relief that you will start to experience. Because you see, when you begin to free yourself from that tiny box of thinking this is all there is, this is all that I have, you will actually begin to feel this incredible relief. Oh my goodness, this isn't all there is. There is so much more. Okay, so I will leave you with that. Have a wonderful day. Sending you all much love and namaste.